Alright, we're picking up where we left off yesterday with this one because I was planning on doing this after dinner, but I had a stream to do right afterwards because dinner basically was coming so late. And by the time I finished up the stream, it was really late, so no chance to do a review of this. So let's continue to talk about Attack of the Cybermen. One thing that was pointed out, though, by the behind-the-scenes documentary for this one was that before the Doctor saw the Cyberman for the first time, he was rubbing his cat lapel. Now, according to Colin Baker, he was suggested to do that by the director of the story, who here's this fun fact about the guy who directed this story, his name is Matthew Robinson. That's his name. Here's a fun fact for him. Did you know he came back for New Who? Yes, he did. And he directed the Cybermen story. Which one? The one that brought back the Cybermen to New Who. That being Rise of Cybermen and Age of Steel 2-parter. Yeah, he did that one. He is to date the first and only known director to do this. Where he comes back and does basically a story for New Who. As a matter of fact, he's done several stories for New Who. That was the first one he did. And I gotta praise him for that. So Doctor sees him, and of course the Cybermen is kind of taken out with basically they take out the Cybermen with basically the Sonic Lance. The Sonic Lance, from what I can tell for this thing, this was basically the production team probably just trying to do a substitute for the Sonic Screwdriver. He stabs the Cyberman with it, and then of course they walk away. Of course the body is found later by Leighton. Yes, Leighton. Of course, you have him where he sees the Cybermen, and of course, basically, he is, well, like, I'm your prisoner, I like to be taken away, I'm down with Cyberdice. So, he can be Cyberdice, no problem. And of course, basically, he explains where he's from, like, oh, I know that world. It's a race of warriors who basically do things for money. Yep. Yeah, it's like, can I be a Cyber Controller? Oh, he's, you know where he is, right? Yeah, I believe he's on Telos. And they show Telos. Telos looks completely different from the way we look into the Cybermen. It's the same planet. Yeah, and it was pointed out by the director of the story that the reason why it looks different. Now, unlike in the case of Destiny Daleks, where there was no reason why the Scar looked so different than it did between Genesis Daleks and Destiny Daleks, this one there was a reason why. The reason why they changed the look, because at the time, Tomb of the Cybermen was lost. So that's why that the planet looks different. And apparently that when they first see Telos, there's these Cybermen obviously there, a whole bunch of them. I think in the case of the last time we saw the Cybermen, it was a small handful of them. This one, it seems like there's a lot more because it's a planet of Cybermen. Now, of course, they have slaves there. We have three of them basically break out to try to take out one of the Cybermen, take out one of his heads, and he failed. Then of course he takes out another Cyber Scout, takes the head, try to do a little like, here's my prisoner. They try to do that, and half the time that works, and others doesn't work. But it is also shown these two are partially cybernized, and they're shocked at the fact that these people are flesh and blood. I'm thinking, wait, if you're flesh and blood, what about your head? I think probably most of the body. Of course, they want to off the planet. How they got here is never explained. Now, it is pointed out, though, that this story, okay. Now, it was pointed out by another source I read where that the Tomb of Cybermen takes place in 2495. This is about 100 years later. Yes. When it takes place, you might ask? It's definitely in the 26th century, per se. Yes. So, despite the fact that the story itself is set like in present day on Earth is basically present day, but Telos is set like about 500 years in the future. Yeah, about that much. So that was pointed out by another source. That's when the dating of this thing is. Okay. So do you confirm? Yes, it is that this story in a way is a follow-up not only to Cybermen but also Resurrection Dalek because of Leighton being here. And of course, the Cyber Controller is here as well, making his first appearance since Tomb of the Cybermen. And here's a fun fact about the Cyber Controller. Did you know he's played by the same actor? But you see in this story, it looks like, wait, the Cyber Controller put on some weight. Well, there is a reason for that, because the actor put on weight since that story. So, yeah, that's the reason why he looks chubby here and why his head looks different. Yeah, that was simply the reason for it. Mm-hmm. And of course, Cybermen is, oh, there's logic in what he says. Yeah, that line has been frequently used by Linkara a lot. Whenever he does his reviews, he loved because he's a big Doctor Who fan, and he loved using that clip a lot. Sorry about that. I pray to God this does not get flagged because that's not my fault. My thing decided not to basically put on pause when it was supposed to. Okay, here we go. Finally, I have the correct one here. Let's see if I can find it here. If I have the actual info I need here. Let's see. There was a source I saw here where it has the date of when this takes place. Okay, here we go. So, apparently, this one is set in 2530. That's the date, basically, that the telescenes are set. So, now the Cybermen's little base they have in the sewers, like, after they leave, this base is never seen again. Like, is dismantled? Are the Cybermen still there? Unknown, because they don't go back to, because basically Layton is taking Telos. Well, how? Well, I'll get to that. So, the Doctor arrives on Earth, because of course he does. And we have where Perry arrives in London first, and despite the fact the actress is British, this is the character's first time she's been to London. Now, the Doctor, we first see him in the story, he is doing something he hasn't done since then. He's fixing the chameleon circuit, and the TARDIS changes shape. First, you see it take the shape of this weird pillar, and then it transforms into a piano, and then it transforms into a gate. Like, that's interesting. And then eventually it goes back to the normal classic TARDIS look. So, they arrive in a junkyard, which, when I read, this is the same junkyard from Unearthly Child. One of 2 times they can go back to this area. They actually go back to this once again during the Silver Anniversary episode. Yep. And throughout the story, Perry mentions the Doctors are calling different names. Call her Tegan, Jamie, at one point call her Susan. Now that's a name basically is not brought up in the series, with the exception of her appearance in 5 Doctors, since her last appearance was in Dalek Invasion of Earth. Tegan, of course, second time she's been called that. So, of course, she calls Susan when she sees the address, which is the same junkyard he was based in the pilot episode of the series, back in 1963. And this came out in 85, 22 years later. Yes, seriously. So, then of course he finds where Layton's little operation is, and well, of course he takes out the two Bobbies. Like one he takes out the sewer. He takes a hat, which was so funny. And then of course they go into the sewer at the handcuff, and the other one they run into the guy who plays Deveros out of suit. And this was the first and only time, like I mentioned last video, this first and only time they did this. Mentioned about Layton, and of course, like, oh, the guy who can kill his own mother, yeah, who basically kills his mother, like basically the way he characterizes him, and the guy's like, yeah, that sounds like him. So they follow, and of course they find the guy who's they find this. Of course that's when they go with the Cybermen thing, and then of course they escape, and then of course the copper has disappeared. Don't know what happened to him. His hand club broke off. Yeah, he disappeared. It's never seen again. The doctor goes starts like, oh crap. It's like, what? Now here's the thing. He pressed some keys, and this is, and you think, oh, this is how he locks TARDIS, presumably, and he goes inside, and he's attacked by Cybermen. What? Yeah, and then of course that the police officer proceeds to shoot the Cyberman right in the freaking face, right through his mouth. Like, okay. And then, of course, they pick up one of the cyber guns, take out, like, oh crap, there must be more. There must be around that door. Shoots that guy. And then, of course, the doctor is captured. And, of course, they're about to kill Perry. And, like, no, don't kill Perry. If you want a cooperation, you have to basically not kill her. Also, from what I read, Nicole Bryant was not a fan of wearing the outfit she's wearing this episode because it was November and it was cold. Yeah, she hated wearing this attire in November, though she got a much better attire later on. So then, of course, she's taken away to get much better clothing, which she would wear for the rest of the story. Probably she was a lot better wearing that outfit. So then, of course, she sees Leighton again and is like, huh, I haven't seen you since basically you teamed up with the Daleks. And he's like, oh, you changed your face. Yeah, I guess he acknowledges that because even though it hasn't been that very long. I mean, from his perspective, it's only been like a year since the last time he saw him. Of course, he does not bring up, hey, where are your companions you had during your last time I saw you? He does not bring it up at all. He does bring up like a little info related to what the Cybermen's plan is. Their plan is to, get this, prevent the events of the 10th Planet story. They want to prevent the destruction of Amandas. Yeah, what happens in 1986. And apparently, the date they mentions here is 1 year prior to that. Interesting. That was quite interesting. Yeah, what I've heard that they mentioning here is that they really want to throw in a lot of references to Cybermen stories to kind of make up for the fact what happened with Twin Dilemma. And of course, Colin Baker has mentioned in the interview that some people he brought the people thought it was crap. He thought it was okay. His debut story. He from what I can tell, he was not that fond of Twin Dilemma, despite the fact that was basically his debut. Well, first story, anyways. So, then of course they're about the fact that Telos Space, it's their home planet, and of course Doctor correctly points out that's their the whole planet. They killed the Cryons, which they make debut in the story, and sadly this is their only live action appearance to date because next time we see them, novels, audio dramas, and comics. Because the species never appears again. And here's the strange thing about the Cryons. Originally, they were supposed to be all guys. But it was suggested by the director, hey, because the Cybermen are these big, beefy, muscular guys, why not make these Cryons all women? Yes. Yep. And the Cryons, there is Faith Brown, Sarah Green, Sarah Badger, and Esther Fruit, I believe her name is. Yeah, so, and apparently Fist was apparently the leader of the Cryons. She sadly dies in the story. How? She's brought out to warm air and she boils because it's mentioned by them they can't survive in warm air because they don't get survive in below 0 temperatures. Which, that would make it perfect for Antarctica. Yeah, if they go to Antarctica, they'd be perfect for that there because it's always cold there. So, if they come there, go to Antarctica, go to North Pole. Or go to northern Canada. Or Greenland. Yeah. But as long as they stay basically in a nice, cool area, basically perfectly fine. So, and they do this thing in the whole story where they always touch everything. According to what they mention here, the reason why they do that, because the actors cannot see out of their attires. One of them requested their little mustache they have on their outfits be trimmed. And it looks like a Hitler mustache. Yes, seriously. So then, of course, basically, Doctor is brought to Telos, but they arrive in the tombs. Which I mentioned the reason we look different, because John Nathan Turner basically didn't exactly... I don't think he... from what I could tell, it's not like he didn't want to use the way they look back in Tomb of Cybermen. That was not the issue. It's the fact that they had no source to draw from because basically the story was lost. So they had to make new ones. And there was also several instances of rogue Cybermen when they woke up and of course they went haywire and of course they've been killed off here. Yeah, and of course Dr. points out, I've always hated this place. Yeah. So, Eventually, of course, basically they get out of the place. Of course, the doctor is still taken to is being held captive by the Cybermen and held in a room. Perry's taken by the Cryons to another place. Leighton and the other guy get taken by the Cryons to a different location. And it's revealed the Cryons actually hired Leighton. Why? To liberate them from the Cybermen. Yep. That was the reason why that he was brought here. And apparently he was stranded on Earth at the events of Resurrection Daleks, and he basically stole electronic equipment to contact for help, and the Cryons the first people to respond. And they put a request to hire him to deliver the Cybermen, which he agreed to. Okay, interesting. So then they meet with Stratton and the other guy, and they go to the time ship, which apparently this was actually when it was stolen. Where this time ship came from, they don't know. Faust didn't realize, though, that the Doctor was a Time Lord until he mentioned, like, oh, you're a Time Lord? A very angry Time Lord? Yep. That was according to her. What do you think? Is that a new cup? No, it's an old cup. I'm finally able to drink out the damn thing because I got a new lid. Finally, after, like, oh gosh, like 2 or 3 years. I've not had it because this lid actually broke because I dropped it. Yes, the lid broke. The cup itself was fine. Just the lid broke. I couldn't drink out of a broken lid. So that's the reason why basically I'm using this cup now. And plus it's bigger. So eventually they kind of have the Doctor take out one of the Cybermen with this this exploding powder, and then eventually the Faust is killed by the Cybermen leader, X-Up controller. The Doctor, of course, basically gets freed, reunites with Perry, of course, about to leave. Then, of course, they teleport where Leighton is, where he has been capped by the Cybermen, and his hands were freaking crushed, with his hands covered in blood. And then he's cybernized. Not fully, anyways, but he is cybernized, because basically Perry made a request to free him. And, of course, Doctor misjudged him. He apologized to him, and, of course, he's like, it's fine. And he gives him basically a little tool to help him, because then the Cyber Controller shows up, and it's like, oh, and then, of course, Cyber Controller, apparently behind the Cyber Controller's back, Leighton stabs him, and then, of course, Cyber Controller drops his gun, and the Doctor pick up the gun and fire a bunch of Cybermen, destroy a bunch of Cybermen, and fire the Cyber Controller several times. And he apologized, misjudging Leighton, and then, of course, the Doctor leaves. And basically, he regrets, this is all just from his perspective for Leighton. He just didn't listen, because he basically saw Leighton as a murderer. Probably because events of the last Resurrection Dalek, that's possible. But, damn, this was a really good story. I thoroughly enjoyed it watching it yesterday. Apparently, this story raised some controversy when it came out. But why do I ask? The violence. I wouldn't be surprised Mary Whitehouse basically be whining about this. Hey, this show's got violence again. I thought we stopped doing this garbage. I would not be surprised if Mary Whitehouse was complaining about this. Because that was her thing. She hated Doctor Who for the concept of, oh, this show's for children. And, like, no, we acknowledge the fact that, yeah, we were kids, but we're acknowledging the kids are growing up. People still watch the show. I mean, it's your fault basically got satirized. Tom Baker probably left the show because he got tired of all the freaking complaints from Mary Whitehouse. I'm sure she probably won't lead the charge against complaints against this very story. Also, there's a confusing thing on who actually wrote the story. Because apparently there was a clause in the contract that Eric couldn't write the story because he was the head scriptwriter at that point. But he did write it with basically someone else who basically is credited under an alias. It's been confusing. It's credited under the name of Paula Moore, which is an alias for Eric Stewart. But this was a damn good story. I personally enjoyed it. And plus also, they actually used music. Yes, music from Earthshock. I don't mind that at all because it's the same Cyberman suit, so why not? Yes, of course, my someone emphasis that they actually have more darker tone to them, which is fine. But me personally, I thoroughly enjoy this story. This is one of my personal favorites, and I love this. And with that, I have reviewed almost every single classic Doctor Who story involving the Cybermen, like all their appearances to date, that's considered major stories, of all but two. And you're thinking, okay, what is left? I mean, you've reviewed like practically almost every single one, which is definitely true. What else is left? Well, there's Debut of 10th Planet, which I can get my hands on that, no problem. And Wheel in Space. And that's it. Those two are literally the only stories I have left to go feature Cybermen. But colorized, yeah. Here's the strange thing about the Cybermen. They weren't featured very much in color. Because you have Resurrection Daleks. Now, it was Revenge of the Cybermen. That was the first one. They get Earthshock, 5 Doctors, this story, and Silver Nemesis. So 5 times in about, let's see, in about 17 years. Yeah, the Cybermen weren't used very much. And I've also heard they were going to bring back the guy who created the Cybermen from 10th Planet to the story, but he turned it down. But damn good story. I love this one. I thought this was definitely, yeah. Anybody who watched it definitely agree this is better than Twin Dilemma, but not by much. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, and it's probably one of the Car's favorite stories. Probably one of Louis Lovelock's favorite stories as well. If I rank it, basically like has it been technically a bad Cyberman story I've reviewed? No. Like, the Cybermen are basically, I love the Cybermen. Now, here's the strange thing, just by sheer coincidence, that the last time it appeared, which was in the 25th season, I believe that was in 1988, I believe it was. You were thinking, wait, wasn't that also the same year that the Borg parent Doctor Who? Yes. I have talked to Melissa Sugrass about that, the woman who created the Borg, and despite the fact, similarities, according to her, she has told me this, that the whole thing of the Cybermen would be the base of the Borg, it never came to mind. Not at all. Despite similarities, the Borg are not ripoffs of the Cybermen, despite the fact that the Cybermen predate the Borg by over 20 years. By about 22 years. Yet, despite that little factoid, yeah. And here's the strange thing with the Cybermen. They haven't fought all the Doctors. Like, here are the Doctors, they never fought. They never fought the 3rd Doctor. They never fought the 8th Doctor, not on screen anyways. I think they found them up in the Big Finish books. Big Finish, or probably the novels. 9th did not, but 10th through 12th did fight the Cybermen. So all, basically, the 13 Doctors we've seen so far, only 2 have never done it. 3rd and 8th. 8th was a good reason why. 3rd, even though, yes, from what I've heard, they did make a cameo in Carnival of Monsters, but there was no major Cyberman story. I don't know. I think maybe they just don't want to do it. Probably because, basically, that Invasion was probably so popular. That's a possibility. But it's by sheer coincidence that this one makes references to almost every single Cyberman story to date at this point. Like, it's 10th Planet, Invasion, 2 really good stories, Resurrection Daleks, and Earthshock. Yes. Despite the fact, yes, this was not the 25th, this was not the 7th anniversary season, but still, for the start of the season, it's really good. Okay, so that's episode of you. Next episode is going to be My Hero Academia, then the Comic Corner, and then it's on the Machuca Tensei. Okay, next video. Bye.